Welcome to Pixel Realms, the podcast where two geeks dive headfirst into the gaming multiverse. They're basically like Gandalf in a headset, minus the wisdom and magic. So, grab your snacks and level up your patience. Pixel Realms, where the pixels are real, but the knowledge, not so much.
This is Pixel Realms, episode 14, Real World Experience in Video Games. I am Joe.
And I am Mark.
And today's episode is all about real-world video game experiences. So we're going to go from the extreme to the not extreme, and we're going to see where things go from there. But before that, as always, we cover the news. And today's news, we only have three little stories, but the first one is all about Baldur's Gate, which Mark is a huge fan of, has countless hours into it. And the last time we talked about it in the news was that a patch was coming out. Well, the patch was accidentally, I don't know by who, released to the PS5 prematurely. I don't know when it's coming out. Mark, do you know a date on that?
They didn't have a specific date yet. They wanted to make sure it was, done before they released it, and they were rumoring it to be somewhere, first quarter.
Okay, so pretty quick here. But
pretty soon.
Sounds like they did pull it back, the patch at least from the PS5, and so that might mean that it's getting closer. Who knows? In other news, the first that I'm aware of, I don't know if we can call Rebel a AAA studio. I'm gonna call them that because they have done many games, but I personally don't know if they are or not. But Sniper Elite, which has been a series for a very long time, and I've played almost every Sniper Elite title. The first $80 game has finally come. And they just decided to just go, skip 70, because none of their games were 70 before that. They just went directly to 80. And here's the thing. One, I've been against the $70 price tag, and I'm definitely, of course, against the $80 price tag. This is for the base title. This is not for a premium edition or deluxe extra edition or collectors. This is just the base title. Here's the thing. The initial reviews are saying it's the previous Sniper Elite game with a new world. That's it. So you're paying $80 for a map. And I believe we just had a rant about that not that long ago. So
one that was officially caught on film and the other one that was not.
So I love the series. I will eventually get it. I am not paying $80. I don't think a lot of people are going to either. I think and I hope that the gamers rebel because one, rebel, because they're, the studio's called, yeah, okay. Anyways, hopefully people resistance of the game title. The puns are just coming off today. And do not buy the $80 price tag on this game. Because one, it's not going to be worth it, and two, we want to make sure the studios are aware that us gamers aren't going to be caught up in their inflation of price titles. But in the good news, Mark has something to share.
Yeah, unlike Sniper Elite, who felt like they needed to overprice their game and completely ruin their franchise, because I'll tell you what, they might have done enough damage, because I know someone like me, I don't know if I'll buy I don't know if I'll buy another game from them, because that's insulting. That's insulting to not just my wallet, but to just my intelligence. Yeah. And it's an insult to every fan out there. So I'm proud to say that Orcs Must Die Death Trap just came out this morning for only $29.99. Same price, I believe, that Orcs Must Die 3 came out for several years ago. Now, they did release, at least Orcs Must Die 3, had I want to say it was either 3 or 4 DLCs that you did have to pay for. The most expensive one, actually, I think they were all the same price. They were $7.99. They usually had one new, I don't want, it's not a level. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's usually like a map set that has 3 to 4 different matches that easily a good, I don't know, let's say 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, maybe more of content. $7.99 still maybe a smidge overpriced, but I I'll take that any day of the week than paying $80 for just the base game, not including their season pass and other stuff. So yeah, the company Robot Entertainment, I believe, is what they're called. They've only done Orcs Must Die games. That's their bread and butter. That's why they probably do it better than anyone else. I know I'm gonna buy it. This is gonna be a shill. Buy it, buy it, buy it, or don't.
In other words, Mark says to, I think it was buy it. I might have that incorrect. I might have that.
No. You got that. I'm proud of you. You got that right.
Oh, hey, I did things. I did a thing.
Yeah, I want to see them succeed just to continue. I mean, it's probably not going to die out, but I'd like to see them succeed, or maybe not be afraid to branch out and do something besides Orcs Must Die, because so far I've loved all of their games. They're a proven company in that regard. So yeah, I hope if you like tower defense games or that kind of similar style where you need to be a little bit more strategic, then this is going to be a game for you. And they're usually fun. Even these games they're not for everybody. I never used to be a tower defense guy, but Orcs Must Die changed that. So
yeah, I played a little bit of I don't know, 3, I think it was. I think my cousin bought it for me for Christmas or birthday or something a few years back, or a year ago, whatever, and it's fun. But I think it's a game I feel it's probably best for multiplayer, right?
Yeah, you do. You could get some enjoyment out of single player, but it's definitely better with a friend. Just because the orcs could get overwhelming, especially if you're trying to 100% it. Me and your cousin have both 100% of the games, and I'm talking. That means on the highest difficulty.
Oh, geez.
And the highest difficulty solo. I know people can do it. I've seen videos of people who've done it, but I'm not that smart. And my hand-eye coordination and reflexes aren't what they used to be. So I definitely need a buddy. Now, the great thing is, one last small little piece, starting with Orcs Must Die 2, it was co-op, 2 players. Okay. Same thing with 3. This game can play up to 4 players. So, and it scales to the amount of players. It's not going to be like too hard if you only have 2 players because you have to have 4. No, if you have 2 players, it scales to 2 players. If you have 4 players, it scales to 4 players, etc. So that's also makes it exciting to have however many play it. So yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I'm excited. I'm excited, and who knows? Maybe it'll be the game that I need to finally break me of my addiction. Please get me away from Balatro. Please, I'm begging you, somebody, anyone.
And just like that, Baltros 2 just launched.
No!
Real world video game experiences. So what we're talking about is games that happen to take place with real world events per se. And the first one, if you're a gamer of any sorts, you'll know of games like Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Battlefield. All these games, when they first launched, all took place. Was it World War I? I think most of them all were.
And, they were World War I or World War II.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think they're No,
I think it's 2.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's 2.
2 is. I think most of your war games usually came out and it revolved around World War II.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So that's what we're talking about into this episode. Games that have those type of historical things with it, for the positive, for the negative. And then there's also titles that aren't to do with war. So Assassin's Creed has things with time periods. So what was it? Origins is based in Egypt. So you have a lot of that Egyptian history in there, which can be cool, but also, again, has that issues in there as well. Oregon Trail. People wouldn't think about this as being a title that has real world experiences, but it does, because it has historical information in it. L.A. Noire, which is a big game that came out 14 years ago now, L.A.
Oh, I
Noire.
didn't know it was that long. Wow.
Yeah, so L.A. Noire set the stage for many different things. It's a Rockstar game, 2K.
Yep.
It was the first game that had motion capture expressions to the extreme level that we have in today's games. And what
And they
made it
always
super
do so
important,
well.
yeah, what made it so cool and important to that title was that you had to figure out if someone was lying to you based on the facial expressions. In a lot of games, they're giving you clues, this, that, and whatever. This was all about you just had to read someone. And so they brought in the best actors they could with the facial expression ability, and it's a fun game, great story, a lot of fun.
Would you say, again, it's been 14 years, like you said. Would you say that it still holds up today, 2025?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I played it maybe 6 years ago. And it's like this would be a game I hope that they remaster because it is, I feel, in my opinion, it's a classic game. It's one of those games that's going to go down in history as trendsetter, that can change the entire industry. And surprisingly, it didn't go as far as I thought it was going to in terms of the motion capture and how that was going to be more integrated into games versus just a what's it called, a cosmetic kind of appearance. So
yeah, and while you're on the topic, of Rockstar, real fast, that L.A. Noire, I believe, segued into the Mafia series. Like they're not connected, but
yeah,
a lot of Mafia does a lot of what L.A. Noire did, if I'm not mistaken, and those games did get remastered.
Yeah. Mafia did get remastered. Now, Mafia does not have, at least the earlier versions, I'm not sure if the last one did, but the early versions did not have motion capture. They also were not, what's it called? They're not based on like the LA Noire where you had to read people's faces. It was more of a gun shoot 'em up story. It was, it's Grand Theft Auto in the Mafia era. Whereas
But
LA
did it
Noire
take place in the right timeline at least?
yes, it was in the gangster period. It was in that, and it was in, yeah, definitely.
So then it at least counts in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's the thing I feel that now I'm going to segue just a little off topic, but LA Noire, Mafia, the early Grand Theft Autos were all really, really cool and unique because they went into areas that other titles did not. And I feel with the last GTA game, what we're seeing from the next one, it's hash and repeat. It's the same stuff, just, a new map, bigger map, more stuff, but it's not going to be anything unique. And that's what was, think about GTA 2 to GTA 3. Huge difference, top down to third person. Hugely changed the landscape of that game. Vice City kept the same kind of style, so it was, in my opinion, kind of like a DLC. And then what was the other one called? GTA. What?
After GTA,
Like the gangster one.
Wasn't that just GTA 4?
No, there was one right before that. I can't think of the name. It was like in California, in Compton or something.
San Andreas,
San Andreas, yeah. San
I want to say it was San Andreas.
Did change things because they added a bunch of new little side games within it. So where Vice City just kind of rinsed and repeated a little bit of 3, San Andreas did change the gameplay a bit. 4 made it just huge. That was their big selling point, was that it was a much bigger game. And I don't know. So anyways, go back to topic here. I just feel like Grand Theft Auto it's going to sell a crap load of money or a crap load of copies. It's just not going to be the title that it could be probably. But, Rockstar's pretty good at pulling things out of a hat. Look at Red Dead Redemption. Freaking the open world experience is something to be, that's a title that's not even on here. And that's loosely based on historical stuff. That's interesting. So anyways, so we got 911 Operator, which is a small indie title where you play as a operator for emergencies, and it's inspired by real world events.
And it was pretty fun. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's basic user interface. You just have flashing lights and a little map and all. Yeah. Very, very basic. You get sucked into it.
Long. Yeah, it's not super long, but very easily addictive and kind of kind of stressful. Like,
Oh
not
yeah.
obviously, probably not as stressful as an actual 911 operator, but there is a certain level of stress involved. You could send, people to do a job, and the people that they're going to save could potentially die, or even the people that you sent, you dispatched, something could happen. So there was a little bit of a sense of dread and worry about not just failing. I guess in that regard, though, it was more you just didn't want to fail the mission, but it still counts. It's still something that, like, you get that sense of a little bit of realism.
Yeah, absolutely. And diving into the realism portion, this isn't on my list here of titles either, but so obviously I've talked about it on almost every episode, but I am a flight simmer. And within flight sim, there is a thing called VAT sim, which is where people can pretend to be air traffic controllers. And the network's very large. There's thousands of people on at a time. And during the big events, you'll have, just like in real life, hundreds of planes coming into an airport being manned by a couple of air traffic controllers, and they get stressed because they want to have the experience be as realistic as possible for the pilots. So you don't want planes crashing into each other, that kind of jazz, right? Just like in real life. And so just like in a game like Battlefield, where you can be very stressful in the event and the time period, they experience the same kind of thing. Racing titles can be the same thing, especially online. Obviously, you can get very nervous. Your palms are, sweaty, mom spaghetti, M&M stuff there. With racing titles against AI, but even more so when you're online with other people, because now you don't want to ruin their experience. I remember it was like a year or so ago, the new Forza game came out, and a streamer was playing it, and he was opening the game to other people to join, so I decided to jump in. And for a couple races, I was right behind him or right ahead of him. And I was like, oh crap, I can't screw up because if I do, it's on stream. So now I'm more nervous than ever, or I don't want to ruin this dude's stream. And I also don't want to, have these other people crash because of me being nervous. So I actually started backpedaling a little bit and falling back in the field because I was getting nervous. But okay, so Mark, you play a lot of MMOs.
Play more than I'd like to admit.
Is there any connection? I know none of it's based on real world events, but is there any connection, do you feel, with a real world experience?
A lot of the Korean based MMOs, their bread and butter is graphics, to the point that a lot of the MMOs that come from Korea, like your Black Desert Online, and there's a bunch of others, where the graphics are very hyper realistic, fully customizable to make the faces. You can even mess with like facial structures. Mess with you're not just messing with the mouth. You're messing with like the upper lip and the bottom lip, the jawline, and you can make them look pretty realistic. Now, obviously, they're hyper. I don't want to say sexual is not the word. They're definitely, they have a glow up, right? They're definitely a lot prettier than maybe even real people could be, without like lots of like makeup and other things like that. But graphically, they look very realistic, skin tones, everything. But that's probably the closest thing. Other than that, like everything else, there's no realism. At least not in any MMOs I've played for long periods of time.
Okay. So when it comes to the experience in these games, one thing, as I mentioned earlier, is educational purposes. So Assassin's Creed Origins, there's actually I think Odyssey had the same thing, but Ubisoft actually made a version that removed the violence, the fighting, all that kind of jazz. And it's I don't remember what they call it though. But anyways, it's where you get to experience the world and the stories within Assassin's Creed for the historical thing. And I thought that was really, really cool, because some schools actually, some universities and whatnot, brought it into their lessons, and they're able to teach students through the video game stories, which is something really cool that is not used very often in titles. I know there's studies that are done about the negative effects, and we've talked about it on this podcast here, but the negative effects on video games, whether it's physical or mental health, and that's, talked about all the time in universities and media and all that jazz. But to bring a game into the classroom and teach you from the game is very, very rare unless it's some sort of simulation based thing. So like a flight sim, drafting, or whatever it be, unless there's something like that. So I thought that was really cool.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and it might not be Arma, but I was thinking, wasn't the most recent Arma game, or maybe it was a different series, got play reviewed by they brought in actual military people to play the game and compare the stuff you did in game to what they did in real life, and a lot of the soldiers were like, this is actually pretty close.
Yeah, I do think Arma did that. Yeah, I think you're right on that. And that's just a good example.
How more realistic can you get than having an actual military people come in and say, wow, the drills are similar, or the type of shooting that you have to do, or how you have to shoot your gun, etc., the way you load your gun.
Yeah.
That's pretty flattering, I would say, when it comes to realism.
Absolutely. Another thing that is huge is, okay, so my wife, she is big into the Egyptian time period, what's it called? Archaeology?
Yeah, archaeology.
No, what's the terminology? But anyway,
I mean, are you talking about archaeological finds like the Sphinx, the hieroglyphics, or are you talking about the mythos?
No, the Sphinx and all that. Yeah. So she was very passionate about that as a young child, and she said one of the things that inspired her was Indiana Jones, and then of course Jurassic Park when they're digging up the dinosaurs. That inspired her as well. So the movies were the thing that pushed her to have a lot of interest in that, which then she read books that further educated her in that topic. So obviously educational is important with my wife, and then as Mark was talking about earlier, furthering down the road is where the question mark comes in with the negative factors when it comes to real world events in games, and that is the psychological thing. Some people, and this is not just like Call of Duty game per se, but one of the hot topics was Grand Theft Auto. When it comes to potentially kids doing violent acts because of a video game, trying to reproduce something they saw in a video game, a bomb in a car, trying to shoot someone from a building, whatever it be. Some people have blamed video games, and there hasn't been enough evidence in this. And I know we covered this in a previous podcast episode, if not a couple different ones, honestly. But
yeah, it comes up every now and then.
Yeah, but so there's nothing conclusive that video games cause additional harm to children or people, nor more than a book or a movie, because your mind will come up with whatever your mind wants to come up with. And and I mentioned books because not everything has to be visual for people's brains to click in a different way. And the way I look at it is this: people that have done acts of violence and happen to have watched a movie prior to or played a game prior to, more than likely there already was trauma prior to that act. Look at you remember when The Dark Knight happened, and that guy went in there and shot all those people at the theater?
Yeah.
It was blamed on The Dark Knight. It was blamed on the Joker causing that issue. Well, as investigation unfolded, we found out that he had some issues prior to that. And, family and friends had said there was something prior to that. Now, sure, obviously, maybe The Dark Knight had some minor impact onto it, but it wouldn't have been.
Here's the thing. Yes and no, because what we're learning, we still don't know shit about mental health. We are just now getting what would you say, maybe 5 years? Maybe 5 years that mental health has become more normalized to the point that people are starting to accept the fact that mental health is a thing. So a lot of these people who've done some things in the past, and I'm not excusing what they did, you know, if you did an act of evil, it was still an act of evil, whether or not you were innocent or not, because your brain was thinking a different way or because you have mental health issues. What it boils down to is a lot of that stuff is somebody had an undiagnosed mental health problem, whether it be bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, whatever. And then yes, they see something like a piece of media, like a Batman, like a GTA game, something. It can replicate something in their head where they perform an action similar to that thing, but in no sense of the word, you know, especially now that we're starting to learn more things about mental health, that stuff, media is not going to be the blame for why this person went psycho. Maybe it's the trigger because something they saw was the final trigger. But at the end of the day, it's up to the family of that person to somehow get them some help before they go off the deep end, because that's where it boils down to. 9 times out of 10, a person that goes off the deep end and shoots up the school has had issues that people around them have noticed for a while, and either they just were in denial, like, oh, that's not my son. My son was a perfect angel. That's not my daughter. You know, it's either something like that, or they've, you know, been trying to warn people for years, and other people said, oh yeah, you know, he's probably fine, it's probably a phase, blah blah blah, and a blind eye. So I'm always going to stand up for media in that regards, that maybe something about it could cause the trigger, but it's, in my opinion, it's never going to be the fault. You can't blame a piece of media for your kid going psycho and killing someone. You just can't do it.
Absolutely. And like the you know, I don't want to hit this topic too hard because we've touched on it before.
No, definitely not.
But like the media, games, movies, whatever, can also have a major positive impact in this regard. I think of all the people, I'm going to use flight sim as an example because that's my big passion, but so many people have gotten into flight sim and then become real world pilots because of Flight Simulator. That's a positive thing. They've made a career out of it. Yeah.
They train their pilots sometimes using flight sim.
They do. Actually, all of them. They all do some sort of simulation training.
I believe NASA did uses some kind of simulation from some kind of game. I don't know the game. I'm not even sure if it's 100% factual, but I know I've heard in the past that when an astronaut went through some of their training, they also use similar things as like flight sim, as like just making sure that they can even fly the shuttle, even a certain, you know, that certain little bit of a distance. There are
I'm not going to call it a game, but there's experiences that police officers, when they get some training, there's a screen and they have a little fake laser gun, and on the screen there'll be a scene that happens. You know, some person will pop up, and you have a split second to decide, is that person an enemy or is that person not? Yeah. And, you know, they may have a gun in their hand, they may not have a gun in their hand. And this is a training tool they use. You know, it's a you know, in a sense, it's a video game. It's a VR game without the headset. And it's teaching them to react quickly on your feet. Because a police officer, a lot of times, their lives or the lives of people around them can be affected in an instant. So they have to be able to react like that. Absolutely.
Snapping fingers.
Think of the military. Absolutely. You know, Mark and I, you know, we play Ready or Not a lot. In Ready or Not, in the basement, there is the, you know, it's not a video game, but there are the little props of the bad guys and good guys, and you have to go through the little training. You know, they do this in the military. A game I used to play a lot was America's Army. And in there, they had real world experiences of how you train in certain roles. You know, obviously dummy down quite a bit because it is a game overall. But it was really cool to experience that. You get to experience the boot camp segment before you even got to get a gun in your hand. Can you jump the fence? Can you run fast enough for this? You know, all that kind of jazz. So, you know, these are things that aren't video games that have a major impact on the overall mental.
Yeah. There's always going to be a good with the bad, right? Like there's always going to be people who are going to blame video games and movies and whatever for things. And then there's going to be, you know, people that have something good to say about whatever happens, like whether a game has influenced them in a positive note to maybe go down a path that maybe they wouldn't have done normally, you know. So there's always going to be the good and the bad. It's just a matter of, um, you know, in a sense, it's media itself that kind of affects like the positive and the negatives, right? Because bad news is good news. Bad news is what people want to watch on TV and learn about. So rarely you get the fun, nice stories. It's always the bad stuff. But there's plenty of good stuff out there if you look for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another thing is the potential backlash when it comes to being biased or sharing propaganda in video games. And of course, this also extends to other sorts of media, movies and whatnot. But obviously in video games, you spend a lot of time in the first-person view or third-person view of a character. And it's very important that I feel video games keep things separate. We want things as real as we can, but they also need to make sure they do keep things, separate. Games that have done this in the past, I mentioned America's Army, to an effect, what they had was player versus player, and both were in the forces, of some sort. You either played as an American force or you played as the enemy, but they never said what the enemy was. But looking at it, you likely believe it's Afghanistan. And when the game came out, that's who it was aimed for. Special Forces was another game that came out early 2000s. Kind of had the same type of thing in there. Medal of Honor. When Medal of Honor was rebooted back in, when was that, 2016 or so? When it was rebooted, the first, the story for it was a real world war event that happened. And it was against the Taliban. And they actually called it the Taliban. And they had removed it because there was so much backlash from the Taliban community, from the Afghanistan people and all that jazz, saying, no, you can't be doing that. Like, you're now making us seem like we're all bad. And that's not the case. Not all not all Middle Eastern people are bad. Not all Americans are good. Not all Americans are bad. It's no different than any other nation or country. You're going to have the bads, you're going to have the goods in there. And because of the information put out in the press and the media at the time, especially when that game came out, is a very sensitive topic. And it made people potentially become more biased towards, a race.
Yep. It's, it's just a matter of nowadays, things are a lot more sensitive. Social media has made it that way, I think, a lot of the times too. So there's a lot of sensitivity. Sometimes a little too much, but at the same time, it's just at the end of the day, there's the need to try and be at least a little bit tactful. That's part of it. So I definitely get what you're saying there.
And so another thing, and I don't, we try to stay out of the politics as much as possible on this podcast because we want to be neutral. But Mark brought up the sensitivity and stuff. DEI is a very big topic that's been pushed, and it's been pushed to. We had a complete episode on this, so we're not going to dive too much into it. But I just want to make it very clear that we believe in equal stuff. We believe in having gays represented in video games. We believe in having races in video games. We believe in having. If you're going to be an Asian character in the game, you should probably be of Asian descent. Who's voice acting it. We believe in that kind of stuff. And if you believe that is going to be DEI concern, well, I don't think these podcasts are meant for you. Or maybe they are, and they're helping you realize that that's not really what DEI stands for. And I know the push with the U.S. Presidency is pushing DEI, trying to push DEI out, and hopefully the companies that understand the importance to the impact it has on the culture of Americans and the world will stand up against it, because it is important. Now, it is important also not to have things thrown down your throat, because we don't need that. But it is important to have diversity and inclusion in video games and in movies.
Yeah, the thing is that people are different. Everybody's different, and everybody has different ways of living their life and ideals and whatnot. If you know, I again, like, we're not pushing politics. I have a sister, basically an adopted little sister who is transgender, but according to our recent president, there's only two sexes, which inherently isn't false. There is really only male or female.
There's an X and Y chromosome. That is correct.
But what they don't make light of is that, yes, you could be born male, but being born male doesn't mean that you feel male. Your mind, it goes back to what I said about mental health. We're still learning things about the brain, and there could be something about the way they were born that, yes, they have the male parts, but their body, their soul, their feelings are female. Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of the times there'd be that transition, So yes, there are only male and female, but just because you're born a male doesn't mean you were meant to be a male. Just because you were born a female doesn't mean that you were meant to be female. And that's why inclusion is important. And that goes with media, obviously, video games, movies, books, whatever it may be. It's not teaching that an agenda. It's informing people that other things exist. Reading about being transgender in a book, or watching a movie, or playing a scene in a video game where your main character might be a transgender, isn't going to turn little Timmy or Jimmy into a female. And same thing with little Jill or Becky or whatever. They aren't going to suddenly think that they're male. No, it's something that they're born with that maybe they don't 100% understand themselves yet. But the media itself isn't going to do that to them.
I remember when Mrs. Doubtfire came out back in the 90s.
Oh, yes.
There was this, and this is way before social media became what it is today. But there was this massive uproar from people saying, "Oh, we can't have that. We don't want our boys dressing up as girls." It's a damn movie, and if you understand the concept of the movie, you understand that's not what they're talking about.
Right? It's so stupid. It's just it boils down to education again. Yeah. Just educate yourself. Take 5 minutes out of your busy schedule to do a goddamn Google search. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even recommending that. I'm just saying you can learn something in 5 minutes on a Google search that you can't learn just being blind to everything. But, again, I'm not going to get started. Nope.
So either way, another potential negative is that some of these games also focus too much on the entertainment factor and not enough on the educational, the emotional impact it can have. So I don't have any great examples of the emotional part, but there are definitely those educational things where it would have been a great opportunity to dive further into the history of whatever topics being covered. I'm not talking about every single game. We don't want to see this kind of stuff in Mario. Mario is there for entertainment. It is not an educational thing.
That goes back to educating yourself and also not wanting stuff shoved down your throat. Yeah. Put it where it makes sense.
But if you're playing,
is what we mean.
Yeah, but if you're playing like a role playing game, and there happens to be, love interest of, 2 females, 2 males, whatever it be, that could be an interesting topic to dive into because it could help people understand how they can be in love with each other.
Exactly.
I think that's important. I think Baldur's Gate does a really good job at, diving into that. I also thought Dragon Age does a really good job of diving into that, but they got so much backlash because, it's DEI, we can't have that in our lives. But those are games that help you help educate you, and not just in the historical impact, but also in just everyday, conversations.
Yeah, they treat same-sex relationships like they do heterosexual relationships. That it's just two people knowing their feelings for each other, expressing their love for each other, and there's no like quips about, oh, that's you're dating, from like the party members going, oh, but you're dating a female and you're a female. There's not none of that. It's just two people falling in love with each other through the storyline, expressing their feelings and getting together, and there's there's not some big, deal made about whether it's a same-sex couple or a heterosexual couple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what theoretically what we as a people want or should want, because just let people be happy together. Who gives a shit if it's male and male, female and female? Just let them be fucking happy. Not as long as they're not affecting you, as long as they're not hurting you. Who gives a shit?
I was watching this new show. It's on, I think it's Hulu. It's called No Good Deed with Ray Romano and a couple other really good actors in there as well. But in that show, there is two bisexual ladies who, I don't know if they're married or whatever, but it's in LA, and they're buying the house, and they've been trying to have a child and all that jazz. And this is all just backstory stuff. They're not shoving it down your throat to understand, that's the main plot or anything. It's just a side plot that they do a really good job at just providing you with the basic details to know about it. And I thought that was really good. I thought the way it was executed was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I just, equality is all that really needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mark, anything else we can add to this episode, do you think?
Not really to the episode. Well, I do think so. We're talking about the real, the real world in the games, but sometimes that can also mean not so much the topic matter, but like the graphically, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you're getting more and more games out there that no, they don't really take place in the real world. Like, no, this isn't really Chicago. This is new something or other shit. I don't know a name off the top of my head. But it's not a real place, even if it's mimicked after a real place. But graphically, it looks like a real city. The people look like real people. So there's multiple ways that you could push the realism in the gaming. It's not just the real world experiences taken from real life things or historically recreating things. It's also on the graphical end of more realism in the looks and feels, where you're playing a game and the character that you're playing as looks like a real human being. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10 is because they are modeled after a real human being, but it's just the level of detail that is starting to appear in games is getting more and more insane, where sometimes you put them side by side, like maybe like a motion picture or a video game, you almost can't tell the difference. And that's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. CGI compared to what they can do now with game engines, it's getting so. I remember when Shrek came out, and they said Shrek took like, I don't remember it was like whatever, 3 weeks or 4 weeks to render the entire movie. The CGI effects of it all, and now we can experience very similar graphics in real time, thanks to like the Unreal Engine. And there's other good engines as well, but the Unreal just came to my head right away. Think of Fortnite. Fortnite has a cartoonish look and all that jazz, but it's pretty similar in some ways with what Shrek, with the colors and all that jazz, and that's happening real time rendering right there and then. So I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's just a matter of just seeing how technology is really changing the world, and adding to that realism, whether through a technological means.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I really wanted to add.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think Mark has one more thing to follow up on with his upcoming return to stream.
Well, yeah. So I'm planning on returning. I originally was setting the date for February 7th, which is my birthday. It's most likely going to get pushed back a week or two because I'm just trying to make sure everything's perfect. I'm having my artist do something extra with my VTuber model that I have had made. I'm having a new expression added because I had like just the basic like smiley kind of the happy. There's the sad face, and then there's like the grr angry face. Well, I'm having a little something extra done that I really felt like I wanted to have. So that's probably going to push it back about a week, and then I just found out that a friend of mine from Germany might be coming into town around the week of Valentine's Day. So there's a good chance that I might hold off streaming until after she leaves, or just do very limited. But I am going to be going live sometime, probably even this week, or next week, or both, on Twitch, just doing kind of official, unofficial streams, making sure OBS stuff works properly again after, I think it's been at least 2 years, maybe even longer since I last streamed, since I hit that go live button. So I just want to make sure stuff still works the same, get familiarized with my buttons and everything again. Just little prep work that you kind of have to do live, but you don't want to be live. You don't want to be like official. So that's twitch.tv/Hisoka RPG. I'm going to be doing some testing stuff there. And I might record something for YouTube at the same time. Like there's some like smaller Lego kits and stuff that I kind of want to mess with. So kind of doing a 2 birds with 1 stone thing, testing my equipment, testing my stream, testing that kind of stuff. And also like maybe building that. So if people want to come by and chit chat, hang out, that's great. I love, shooting the shit. As Joe knows, I'm a experienced yapper.
Speaking of yapping, I have to make a correction. I just saw. So the news earlier, I said Sniper Elite Resistance is an $80 game, and I said that was for the base model. That is incorrect. The $80 is for the deluxe edition. So there's the basic model, and then there's deluxe edition. So the 80 is for that, which I think includes probably the DLC or the season pass kind of stuff. You can get the game for $50. Okay. You can buy the base game for $50. But if you want to play it early, like today early, you can buy it for $80 and get the deluxe edition. Play 2 days early, get the DLC, etc. So they may not be as bad as I initially made it out to be.
Hang on though. I want to add to that. When I typed Sniper Elite into Steam an hour or two ago, the thing that popped up first was the $79.99 version.
Yeah.
There was no $49.99 version present.
I think they changed something personally.
I think somebody said, "Oh, we're getting some backlash. Let's change this." So, do we have any proof behind that? No.
Well, kind of maybe do. On the Steam reviews, it says, do not pay $80. There's a website like blah, blah, blah. Game also does not run. So maybe that person says do not pay $80, which means maybe they saw it like we did. And that was, I don't know, it doesn't say how long ago, but so I don't think we're the only ones that saw that.
Yeah, no, they did some updating because I don't remember some of this stuff being on the Steam page an hour or so ago. Yeah. Granted, I didn't stare at it super duper long, but what's that smell? I smell something. I smell cover your ass.
Yep. So either way, if it was something shady, that's disappointing to see from Rebel because I've liked their stuff. Hopefully it was just a mistake. But since I saw that, thankfully we were still recording this episode, and I was able to get that in there. But yes, you can buy it for $50, and there is a optional version for $80.
Yeah, but just finishing up what I was saying. So going live on Twitch, probably sometime this week and maybe next week too. We'll see what happens. I'm also might try and figure out the whole YouTube streaming thing and try and do a go live on there. Also, youtube.com/Hisoka RPG as well, where I'm uploading, at least I'm uploading videos weekly. Right now, they're unboxing videos of different kind of things I'm into, like VTubers, like Hololive, obviously Transformers as well. So there's that content as well. But I just wanted to throw that out there, a cheap plug for myself. And also, buy Orcs Must Die.
As always,
Not
thanks.
sponsored.
Thanks for watching, and take care. We'll see you for the next episode.
Bye-bye.